Okay, so in chapter 7, this is a nice complement to chapter 6, which is why we've got 2 chapters in 1 week. I know I usually space these out a little bit. But this is using media in health education. So literacy, selection, marketing, and development, as well as the equipment you might use. So one of the objectives of this chapter is to really justify the need for media literacy. Also explain the criteria by which you might want to consider which media to use. You want to know, you will know the major steps that are involved in media development. You'll have a checklist for media evaluation. You're going to know how to create slide presentations using the principles of modern design. You'll be able to know the advantages and disadvantages of different media methods and the equipment, and then also be able to present a rationale for using a particular form of media or technology. So the key issues for this chapter include media literacy, selecting and evaluating media development, major types of media equipment, dinosaurs, and the major types of media equipment, which include DVD players, document cameras, interactive whiteboards, presentation software, audience response systems, which I think are super cool, personal computers, tablet computers. So we know by way of background that children between the ages of 3 and 12 spend about 6.3 hours a day engaged in some form of media. And the average person spends 4 hours a day watching television. And it's been suggested that the media and the television have become like a peer to our children today. So there's a lot of time basically that people are spending in front of a screen, and they're passively or actively absorbing information through that mechanism. So we want to make sure that people are practicing good methods of media literacy. So basically, the point of media literacy is to be able to look at what is being presented to you as an individual, and to be able to self-reflect and ask some questions about the legitimacy of that. And to be able to scrutinize. So we teach classes in this, for example, around, there's 3 different ways in which we look at media literacy. One is around tobacco. So even though it's illegal to advertise to kids, the tobacco industry still might find some ways that gets done, particularly for the example of like electronic cigarettes, where, you know, they're not geared towards kids, but there's, you know, I'm blanking on what it is. Oh, Hello Kitty electronic cigarette. There's Santa. They come in bubblegum flavor, things like that. So we go in and we teach teens how to look at that stuff and know kind of what's being marketed to them. The same thing with alcohol. You know, the alcohol industry is no different than any other industry. They're marketing their product, so they want to put it in the best light forward. So, but people need to understand what's being sold to them. So if they're being, you know, given the impression that they're going to be more social, be more beautiful, be more attractive to other people, that's what industry tries to sell, and we just want people to be aware that they know what they're buying. So it's not really about censorship. That's not what media literacy is. It's not about eliminating people's First Amendment rights, but just making sure that people know what's being marketed to them and why. So the formal definition is to be able to assess and to access, analyze, and evaluate information that's in both print and electronic venues. Also, there's a 4-step process of informed inquiry that includes awareness, analysis, reflection, and reaction. So awareness is exploring a variety of media sources by accessing that information, really looking again at how the messages are assembled and portrayed, and then reflecting upon it. So looking at one's own personal philosophy, one's own beliefs, and then really kind of developing a reaction to that. And so and expressing their own. So one of the ways that we've done this, for example, at work, there's a couple of different things. One is we've done a class where staff will go in, teach young people about tobacco and media literacy, and then they'll develop these posters based on their own reactions, and then we have a contest for the posters, and then the winning posters become bus shelter ads. And in fact, Cal State Fullerton got involved with mentoring a group of students at one point. So we did one of our bus shelter ads right on campus, on State College. So, but really, again, helping people to get their own voice. So it's not about censorship. It's about developing our own reactions, our own beliefs, and deciding for ourselves what we want. And to also decide too, are we the message or the messenger? So sometimes, like, even we'll be wearing advertisement, and what is our reaction to that? And again, what is it that we believe, and what is the impression that we want to make? So there's some great resources, and these are listed in your chapter as well as in the slides. Some media selection pitfalls to be aware of, kind of shifting gears a little bit. So make sure that you use your different media tools for the right reasons. So don't necessarily just use like a film because people have always used it, or use slides because that's what's always been used. So make sure that you keep your media contemporary. That's one of the first ways that you can distance yourself from your audience, is because media become dated quickly. So if it doesn't look like it's contemporary, then people might think that the information that's being presented is also not contemporary. So don't use it to fill time. In fact, never do anything in health education just to fill time. If it's not purposeful, don't use it. Don't use something just because it's all that's available to you, or because it's the most affordable one. But use it because it's applicable, and because it's the level of material is appropriate. The Audiovisual Group of Addiction Research Foundation has a rating scale. So look at the scientific accuracy of the information that's being presented, and look at its merits as a teaching aid. Whether or not it is contemporary, you know, again, like I've seen just even like if the hair isn't right. I remember this one particular video about sexually transmitted diseases, and people's hair was just really out of date. And so students were like so distracted by that they couldn't, the information was right, but the hair was wrong. So I eventually just stopped using it. Make sure that the message is really clear. They also say that, you know, think about whether or not it could influence attitudes. And influence attitudes is good, but you want to make sure that you're not manipulating people, but giving them the power to put their best foot forward. And look at its believability. And then its technical merits too. So, and then look at whether or not it's interesting to your audience. And this is something you can evaluate, kind of reflecting back to one of the previous chapters where we talked about evaluation. I think it's chapter 5. So this might be something that you check out in your process evaluation. And then also whether or not it can span, so whether or not it has universal appeal. So is it only interesting to certain segments of your audience, and if it's not, then you probably, if it's only interesting to a select group, you probably shouldn't use it. So anyway, look at chapter 7.4 in your book, and that is where you can find your evaluation checklist. But just to give you a preview of what's on that evaluation checklist, here's what's there. So you want to look at the level of media, the language, the content. Is it culturally appropriate? How long is it? How much does it cost? Really, cost is a big deal. Sometimes these materials can be very expensive, and then they become dated quickly. So make sure it's going to be interesting. I always ask if we can preview it and test it with an audience and get some audience feedback first. Look at the quality of it. Definitely, evaluate it, see if it's available, what format is it in, and then also look at approval. So media main objectives is to support your objectives, present resources. It gives some expertise. Again, think about the cost, the financing, how you're going to be marketing the materials, your production, the quality of it, and then also your evaluation. These are the most common types of media equipment. So DVD players, document cameras, interactive whiteboards, presentation software, audience response systems, and personal computers, just to name a few. And so DVD players, as you know, play DVDs. Document cameras can permit the overhead projection of an item. Then interactive whiteboards can be either through touchscreen computer or some kind of digital ink. PowerPoint or Prezi. Be careful with both. There's if you go online, there's like great presentations called like Death by PowerPoint. So make sure that you keep yours interesting. I just grimace a little bit on these slides because I need to make sure that I'm giving you all the content that's in your chapter and all the things that you could be potentially tested on. So I try not to, I fight my urge to be really creative with these slides because I don't want my creativity to potentially jeopardize you missing a point. But this is not an ideal way to be providing a PowerPoint. Audience response systems are those things that are clickers and you can weigh in. They're really fun to use in presentations. They're also a great way to do evaluation. And then, of course, there's personal computers and tablets. Unfortunately, because of the overuse of PowerPoint, sometimes people start to tune out after a while. But the software itself can be awesome in helping you to organize your thoughts and organize your materials. So just some do's and don'ts. You want to make sure that you avoid text-heavy slides or all caps. Again, I grimace when I look at these slides because these are very text-heavy slides. But this would not be something I would want to use in a health education intervention. Don't use too many concepts. So only 1 or 2 concepts per slide. Keep it simple. And then make sure that you use templates that are kind of neutral. Stick with one template. Don't use templates that are too busy either. So stick with a single font type, size, and color. And then, there are graphics that are available. You don't need to throw them in just for the sake of throwing them in. So like silly clip arts, or I was reviewing a PowerPoint just a couple weeks ago, and somebody like flooded the thing with Giphies, and like they're cute. I like Giphies, but I text them to my friends. But I didn't necessarily think a whole professional PowerPoint needed to be filled with them. So clip art, nowadays, like I think people see clip art and they don't really think that that's very professional. Using photographs as much as possible, I think really provides credibility and a sense of realism. And then use subtle and classic, kind of just stay principled with what you're presenting, and highlight text when you need to. Use smart animations as a way to show relationships or to highlight key points. And then avoid using or having a lot of clutter. You can see here, like, there's just a lot of different mixed graphics. And so you want to keep it simple, like this slide is here. So shifting gears, another type of media would be marketing. And marketing is a very defined set of strategies and techniques. I think health educators sometimes really underestimate what it takes to provide effective social marketing for health education purposes. Remember that marketing of for-profit products, that, you know, there's focus groups that are done, there's millions of dollars that are spent on these things. You as a health educator will probably not have millions of dollars for your intervention, but that's what you're running up against. And particularly here in Southern California, we're in a very sophisticated media market. Our kids grow up seeing very sophisticated media images. And so then when we come in as health educators with things that are kind of unsophisticated, very clip art-ish, we lose credibility pretty quickly. So you really want to use advanced planning. It involves effective communication strategies, and lots of focus groups and interacting with the community as well. And health, social marketing or health education marketing, it's really the same as any other kind of marketing. So you want to think about your product, your price, your place, and promotion. So for health, then it might be the benefits of the health behavior to the consumer. So it might be, you know, if you wear your seatbelt, you'll be less likely to be harmed if you're in a collision. So what do they get out of engaging in the behavior that you're trying to sell? And then the price is what they need to pay. So it's a non-monetary cost sometimes when it comes to health. So, for example, if you're trying to get people to use a designated driver, so there may not be a monetary cost to that, but there may be, you know, people might feel ashamed to ask for help. They might feel like they're being judged. So price can come in lots of different ways. And then think about where your marketing should be taking place, and, you know, kind of where they're going to be most likely to see it. And then think about the mechanisms that you have to publicize or to promote. And really that can be pretty vast. It can be everything from online marketing to using bus shelters, bus ads. There's lots of different ways that items can be used, but you want to know what your particular audience is paying attention to. So when you're preparing your materials, think about the different venues. If you're going to use a public service announcement, think about how it will be used as part of an overall plan. A PSA as a standalone item will not be an effective way of changing behavior. It needs to be accompanied by other kinds of methods. Use a consistent message. So you don't want to, you know, just like for-profit companies use consistent messages, right? We know Nike is just do it. So they don't have a different just do it for running than they do for their basketball shoes, right? It's just do it. It's a consistent message. Same thing, you want a consistent logo or icon. Simple is best. And use buzzwords or phrases that people will remember, but keep it grounded in reality. So you don't want to get too cheesy with it, basically. And so let people know what's in it for them. Because again, you're selling something, right? So what's the benefit for them? Make it easy. So you want to provide as much information as possible without saturating your campaign. And make sure that you have lots of feedback. So your book talks about proofreading, but I would also focus group test it and make sure that you're going out with the right message. So basically, you know, this can be a very costly intervention. So you want to keep it simple, definitely proof it, and make sure that you use your resources effectively. So in summary, media literacy teaches individuals critical ways of analyzing mass media. The use of mass media materials in health education has become really common, and so that gives you as a health educator lots of ways in which you can take advantage of that. But you want to make sure that you use your media selection based on sound principles. And that we have to consider cost, availability, but your personal preference shouldn't be what overrides your final decision. And it's better to not use media than to use media that's of poor quality. Again, because you're going to lose your credibility. So anything that's outdated or poor quality, I suggest not using it. They should really be vehicles that enhance what it is that you're trying to do and not be the sole purpose of your health education intervention. So the development of media is rewarding, but it takes a lot of time and it takes sometimes a lot of money. It is warranted though, especially when there's when contemporary materials don't exist or what exists is insufficient. Base it on sound principles. So all the things that we've discussed in terms of theory, you still want to use that in your media. And you want to get away from just giving a lot of facts, but inspire an emotion. So you want something that's going to have an effect on people. And so again, you want to use high quality, be aware and weigh the pros and cons of different kinds of media. And also make sure that you as a health educator know how to use different kinds of media equipment. And that brings us to the conclusion of Chapter 7.